the quiet hum of the city was broken by a story that no one saw coming, a moment so pure, it left hearts touched and eyes teary. This is the story of Barron Trump, a name often whispered in political corridors, but today, it resonates with kindness and humanity. An ordinary cafe turned into a stage for an extraordinary act, leaving everyone there profoundly moved. Picture this: Blossom's Brew, a small and cozy cafe tucked in a quiet corner of town. Known for its comforting aroma of freshly brewed coffee and its warm, homely ambience, it was a sanctuary for those seeking solace in their busy lives. That day, the staff and regular customers carried on with their routines, unaware that their day was about to take an unforgettable turn. A tall figure entered through the door, dressed in casual attire, a hoodie and sneakers, blending effortlessly into the crowd. It was none other than Barron Trump, though no one recognized him at first. His demeanor was calm, his steps unhurried, and his presence, though quiet, seemed to fill the room with an unspoken warmth. Sophia, the cheerful barista, greeted him with her usual smile, offering her best service without realizing who he was. James, the cafe manager, glanced at him briefly, too preoccupied with the burden of his personal struggles to notice anything unusual. And Emma, the part-time waitress juggling her studies and work, felt a fleeting sense of familiarity about him but brushed it aside. What happened next would leave a permanent mark on their lives. Barron's unassuming presence, his gentle interactions, and a small act of kindness would turn this ordinary day into a memory cherished forever. But what did he do that moved everyone to tears? Stay with this story as it unfolds, and discover how one small gesture carried the weight of humanity, a reminder that even in the simplest moments, kindness can shine its brightest. As the aroma of freshly brewed coffee filled the small cafe, a stillness settled over the room. Sophia wiped down the counter, her mind momentarily lost in thoughts about the day's orders. Suddenly, from the corner of her eye, she noticed him again, Barron Trump, sitting quietly at a table near the window. This wasn't the first time he had been there that afternoon, but there was something different about him this time. A quiet intensity, as if he wasn't just there for a drink, but for something more. Sophia's heart began to race, and she couldn't help but watch him closely. Though he wasn't making a scene, his mere presence held a certain calm that seemed to influence everyone around him. James, the cafe manager, saw the subtle shift in the atmosphere too. Customers who had been deep in conversation or buried in their phones suddenly looked up, smiling softly, their faces reflecting a newfound warmth. But what came next was something entirely unexpected. As Barron finished his drink, he didn't just leave a tip, he left something more personal, something that caught Sophia's attention immediately. A folded note lay beside the cash. At first glance, it didn't appear to be anything special, a simple piece of paper with a few words written neatly in pen. But it wasn't the words themselves, it was the sincerity behind them that touched her deeply. The note read, "Kindness costs nothing, but it leaves a lasting impression." Sophia's breath caught in her throat as she read it. She glanced around, meeting James's gaze, who was now standing still, his eyes fixed on the same note. "He left this for you," Sophia said softly. James slowly picked up the note, reading it again, his expression shifting from confusion to understanding, a moment of clarity where everything seemed lighter. Barron had noticed. He had seen beyond their tired smiles and heard the unspoken struggles. He had offered not just a tip, but a message, a reminder that kindness, even in its smallest form, can change lives. The room was silent, except for the sound of steady breaths, each one carrying a sense of gratitude. In that brief moment, Blossom's Brew became more than just a cafe. It became a place where empathy and compassion had been shared, a testament to the power of human connection. Sophia held the note tightly in her hands, feeling the weight of Barron's simple words. It wasn't just a message, it was a spark of hope, a reminder that even the smallest acts of kindness could create ripples beyond comprehension. As she shared the note with James and Emma, their eyes filled with tears, and for a moment, time seemed to pause. For James, the note wasn't just a gesture of kindness, it was a lifeline. The past few weeks had been incredibly tough, his father had passed away, and the cafe had become his only solace. The acknowledgement from someone as unexpected as Barron Trump was like a breath of fresh air in a season of darkness. His hands trembled as he held the note, feeling an overwhelming sense of gratitude he couldn't put into words. Meanwhile, Emma had been quietly observing the unfolding scene, her mind racing with thoughts. She had seen acts of kindness before, but this one felt different, a rare authenticity that touched the heart in ways she never expected. As she wiped away her tears, a thought crossed her mind: how often do we overlook the power of simply being present? The news of Barron's visit spread like wildfire. Customers left comments on social media, sharing their own moments of kindness they had experienced at Blossom's Brew, or recounting stories where small gestures had changed their lives. A young couple recalled how a stranger had paid for their coffee on a rough day, making them believe in humanity once more. Another shared how a mentor's simple act of encouragement had given them the courage to follow their dreams. It was as though Barron's quiet act of compassion had unlocked a floodgate, a reminder that kindness is not confined by social status or fame. It transcends boundaries, breaking down barriers between strangers and creating connections that leave lasting imprints. Back in the cafe, the atmosphere shifted. Every time a customer walked through the door, they did so with a little more warmth in their hearts, knowing that someone like Barron had walked before them, someone who taught them the true value of a simple smile, a kind word, or an anonymous gesture. As Sophia glanced out the window, watching the gentle fall of dusk, she realized something profound. Sometimes, it isn't the grand gestures that move people the most, but the quiet, unseen moments where hearts find resonance with the purest forms of human connection. The days that followed Barron Trump's visit to Blossom's Brew were unlike anything the staff had ever experienced. The cafe wasn't just a place to grab a cup of coffee anymore, it had become a haven for stories, a space where moments of kindness were shared and celebrated. The note left behind wasn't just a token, it became a symbol of hope and compassion. Sophia found herself reflecting on that day more often. The quiet humility of Barron's actions contrasted sharply with the world's obsession with fame and recognition. In a society where gestures are often measured by their public impact, Barron's discreet kindness stood out. It was real. It was personal. And it meant something. James continued to revisit the moment. Each time he thought about it, he felt lighter. The pain of his recent loss seemed to ease, and the weight on his shoulders lifted, even if only a little. The staff, too, were forever changed by what they witnessed, how a simple act of understanding could turn a moment of despair into one of hope. Emma spoke to her friends about the experience one evening, her voice tinged with awe. "You can't understand until you're there," she said, recalling how his presence made them all feel seen, heard, and valued. It was as if Barron had walked into their lives not as a celebrity, but as a human being who genuinely cared. Meanwhile, the cafe became a focal point for conversations on kindness. Customers from all walks of life began to share their own stories, of random acts of generosity, small acts that had changed their days or even lives. Blossom's Brew wasn't just a cafe anymore, it was a community. A community that remembered Barron's visit as a turning point, a moment that reminded everyone of the profound impact kindness can have, even when it goes unnoticed. Sophia, standing behind the counter one afternoon, couldn't help but smile as she watched a young boy carefully leave a small note for the cashier with just 2 words written: "Thank you." That simple gesture carried the same sincerity and power as Barron's act, reinforcing that the essence of human connection transcends fame, status, and expectation. And as the sun set on another beautiful day, the staff of Blossom's Brew knew that they had witnessed something far greater than a celebrity's visit. They had been part of a moment in time where kindness became a legacy that would continue to touch lives, one simple act at a time. Days turned into weeks, but the impact of Barron Trump's visit to Blossom's Brew remained vivid in everyone's hearts. The staff, along with the cafe's loyal customers, began to understand that true kindness leaves a legacy far beyond the moment it occurs. It wasn't just about one man's actions, it was about the ripple effect that followed, changing lives and perceptions. Sophia often found herself telling the story to new staff members who had recently joined the team. Each time, her voice would shake slightly, not from sadness, but from the overwhelming emotion that accompanied the memory. Barron's note had become a guiding light, a gentle reminder of the power of small, thoughtful actions. James continued to manage the cafe with renewed purpose. His conversations with regulars were deeper, more genuine, reflecting his own personal journey toward healing. He would often share with his team how Barron's gesture had shown him that even when things felt overwhelming, a single moment of empathy could shift the tide. Emma, too, grew more thoughtful in her interactions with customers. She began noticing small things she hadn't paid attention to before: an elderly customer struggling to carry a heavy bag, a group of students needing help with their order. "It's not about making grand gestures," she told Sophia one afternoon. "It's the little things that matter most." Meanwhile, the story of Barron's visit continued to spread. News outlets and social media picked up on it, celebrating the unexpected act of kindness. But even in the face of recognition, Barron remained humble, refusing to make it about himself. His only message, echoed through the note, was simple: kindness is for everyone. The cafe became a place where people didn't just visit for coffee, but to be reminded of something greater: community. Strangers sat together, sharing their stories, offering help to those in need, and making the cafe a home for compassion. Blossom's Brew wasn't just a cafe anymore, it was a symbol of resilience, hope, and the enduring power of human connection. Sophia reflected on how Barron's visit had forever changed the way they viewed their purpose. It wasn't about serving drinks, it was about serving moments, creating a space where people could feel seen, understood, and valued. And as long as they upheld that legacy, Blossom's Brew would continue to inspire, one kind act at a time. As weeks passed, the legacy of Barron Trump's visit became more than just a memory, it became a part of the very fabric of Blossom's Brew. Customers who once visited solely for coffee now came with a deeper purpose, a sense of connection, and an understanding that every moment held the potential for something meaningful. The small cafe had transformed into a space where every interaction mattered, where the simplest act could have a profound impact. Sophia often reflected on the conversations that took place after Barron's visit. She remembered how people's faces lit up when they shared their own stories of unexpected kindness. "It's not always the grand acts," one regular customer had said. "Sometimes, it's just a smile when someone needs it the most." James found his new approach to managing the cafe far more rewarding. He noticed how even the smallest gestures, offering a glass of water, listening to a customer's story, could make a difference. Barron's quiet reminder to be present resonated deeply with him, and he knew that the heart of Blossom's Brew lay in its ability to provide more than just a cup of coffee. It provided a moment of understanding. Emma, who had been hesitant about making a mark in the cafe, began to embrace her role with more confidence. She realized that her empathetic approach, checking in on regulars, offering small acts of kindness, was what made her stand out. Barron's influence was subtle yet profound, encouraging her to see the potential in every interaction. The cafe's impact wasn't confined to its walls anymore. Stories of how simple gestures had changed people's days started making their way beyond the local community. Families shared tales of a stranger's kindness during difficult times, teachers spoke of how little acts of encouragement had empowered their students, and even businesses began adopting similar values. In many ways, Blossom's Brew had become a catalyst for a movement, a shift towards embracing empathy in everyday life. And at the heart of it all was that single moment when Barron had walked into the cafe, leaving behind more than a tip, a legacy of compassion that would continue to grow. Sophia watched as a young couple entered the cafe one evening. Their eyes sparkled with excitement as they placed an order, their conversation filled with plans to create a community event inspired by Barron's visit. In that moment, she understood that the impact wasn't fleeting, it was enduring, and it was only just beginning. Blossom's Brew had become more than a cafe, it was a place where lives were transformed, where strangers became friends, and where the smallest acts of kindness sparked profound change. The legacy of Barron Trump's visit continued to unfold, shaping not just the cafe, but the individuals within it. Each day, the lessons of empathy and understanding deepened, creating a ripple effect that extended far beyond what anyone could have imagined. Sophia found herself reflecting on the journey. It wasn't just about one extraordinary moment anymore. It was about how that moment led to a continuous chain of connections, how every smile exchanged, every kind word spoken, built something greater. The cafe became a living testament to the idea that even the smallest acts could create a lasting impact. James, though still carrying the weight of personal loss, felt a renewed sense of purpose. The cafe was no longer just a space for him to work, it was a space where healing and growth took place. The memories of Barron's note guided him through challenging days, reminding him that even in times of grief, kindness could be a source of strength. Emma's confidence grew as she embraced her role not just as a waitress, but as a contributor to the cafe's culture of compassion. She became more attuned to the needs of others, reading the subtle emotions that surfaced during interactions. Barron's visit had given her a lens to see the world through a different perspective, one where every person carried a story that deserved to be heard. Beyond the cafe's walls, the story continued to inspire. Communities began hosting events dedicated to acts of kindness, and businesses adopted similar values in hopes of fostering more compassionate environments. What started as a quiet visit had ignited a global conversation about the importance of empathy in daily life. Sophia, gazing out at the patrons enjoying their drinks, felt a deep sense of fulfillment. The cafe had become a sanctuary, a place where the weight of the world could be lifted, even if just for a moment. And as the days passed, she knew that Barron's legacy had sparked a movement that would ripple through generations, reminding everyone that kindness is not just a fleeting moment, but a continuous journey. The days turned into weeks, and the impact of Barron Trump's visit continued to ripple through the lives of those who had been touched by his simple act of kindness. Blossom's Brew wasn't just a cafe anymore, it was a beacon of hope, a place where stories of compassion lived on, and where every visitor became a part of something greater. Sophia, reflecting on the journey, realized that the magic of Barron's visit wasn't confined to that single moment, it had sparked a legacy of empathy that transcended time. Each day, new stories emerged, small moments of kindness that echoed the same warmth and sincerity. From a heartfelt conversation between two strangers to a teenager offering to pay for an elderly woman's coffee, the cafe was becoming a hub for human connection. James often found himself walking through the cafe, observing the quiet exchanges that took place. It reminded him of Barron's gesture, how a simple note, a few words, could bring people together and offer them solace. His conversations with regular customers now centered not just on their orders but on their well-being. He learned to listen more, to see the unspoken needs behind each interaction. Emma's journey was perhaps the most transformative. She had gone from a shy waitress to a pivotal figure in fostering the cafe's atmosphere of kindness. Her interactions were genuine and thoughtful, always finding ways to uplift those around her. Barron's legacy had taught her that true impact often lies in the little moments, those conversations that stay with you long after they've ended. Blossom's Brew became more than just a cafe for the community, it became a sanctuary for healing, a space where people could find comfort in shared humanity. The world outside continued to move quickly, but within the walls of the cafe, time slowed down. Customers found refuge in a place where every person mattered, where each act of kindness was not forgotten, but celebrated. Sophia knew that Barron's visit would be remembered for generations. The simple message of his note, the reminder that kindness costs nothing but leaves a lasting impression, had taken root in every heart that crossed the cafe's threshold. Blossom's Brew was more than just a cafe, it had become a living embodiment of the power of compassion, a legacy that would carry on, inspiring countless lives to embrace empathy as a way of life. The quiet hum of conversation filled the air at Blossom's Brew as customers settled into their seats, each one carrying a piece of the legacy that had been left behind. The ripple effect of Barron Trump's visit was more than just a fleeting moment, it had become a shared experience, a bond that united strangers through the simple act of kindness. Sophia found herself drawn to the stories people shared, the way their eyes would light up as they recounted moments of unexpected generosity. It was as if Barron's note had unlocked a deeper understanding, a reminder that in a world often driven by chaos and competition, small acts of empathy created lasting change. James observed the subtle shifts within the cafe. There was a newfound patience in the way customers interacted, a mutual respect that seemed to permeate every conversation. It was as if the weight of the world had been momentarily lifted, and in its place, a sense of togetherness had taken root. He often found himself pausing to reflect, remembering the days before Barron's visit, when the cafe felt like just another space to grab a cup of coffee. Now, it felt like something more, a space for healing, growth, and shared humanity. Emma, too, embraced her role with a deeper sense of purpose. She no longer focused solely on serving drinks, instead, she was attuned to the emotions of those around her. Conversations became genuine, moments of connection blossomed naturally, and the cafe buzzed with an energy that was palpable. Barron's influence taught her that empathy is a language everyone understands, one that doesn't require grand gestures but simple presence and understanding. The community surrounding Blossom's Brew continued to grow, each new visitor adding to the collective memory of kindness. Young and old, familiar faces and first-time patrons alike, all shared a common experience, a connection forged through shared moments of compassion. It wasn't just about remembering Barron's visit, it was about continuing his legacy in a way that felt authentic and true. Sophia watched as a group of friends shared a quiet moment by the window, laughter blending with the soft hum of the cafe. Their conversation circled around the impact of small acts, how something as simple as a smile or a listening ear could brighten even the darkest days. It was a testament to the lasting power of empathy, a force that would continue to shape Blossom's Brew into a haven of compassion and understanding. The morning sun poured through the windows of Blossom's Brew, casting a warm glow over the cafe's familiar faces. The legacy of Barron Trump's visit had become more than a story, it was now a part of everyday life, a foundation upon which the cafe continued to build. Customers arrived with smiles, exchanging stories of how acts of kindness had touched their lives in ways both small and profound. Sophia stood behind the counter, watching the rhythm of the cafe unfold. Each interaction was infused with genuine care, a quiet acknowledgement of the shared values they had come to uphold. Barron's simple message had taken root in the hearts of everyone who crossed the threshold, and it was evident in the way they treated one another, more openly, more compassionately. James felt a renewed sense of hope as he moved through the cafe. The space had become more than a place of business, it had become a sanctuary where people found solace and shared experiences. His own personal journey, though still marked with grief, was lightened by the collective strength of the community they were building. The memory of Barron's quiet act continued to serve as a guiding light, showing him that even in moments of pain, kindness could be a source of healing. Emma had evolved too, her understanding of the world deepened by the interactions she facilitated. She no longer saw herself as merely a waitress, she was a storyteller of moments, tiny, unspoken acts that held immense significance. Barron's visit had shown her that every interaction, no matter how fleeting, could lead to something extraordinary. The cafe buzzed with conversations, but the silence between moments spoke volumes. Patrons engaged not just in discussions, but in shared reflections on their lives, offering support and learning from each other. This sense of community was a testament to the lasting impact of Barron's visit, a reminder that kindness creates ripples far beyond the moment they are cast. Sophia thought back to the young couple who had started organizing charity events inspired by the cafe's atmosphere. They, like so many others, recognized that the seeds planted by Barron's visit were flourishing, growing into something that would inspire future generations. Blossom's Brew had become more than just a cafe, it was a movement centered on understanding, compassion, and the power of connection. As the sun continued to set, casting a golden hue across the cafe, Sophia knew that this was only the beginning. The legacy of Barron Trump's visit would live on, not in grand gestures, but in the countless moments of kindness that defined Blossom's Brew.